Hey guys, got a ZVP for you this time. It's been a little while since I've been casting real games that I played, but well, like I said, I wanted to kind of wait until I had something fresh to show rather than, hey look, it's another game. This replay is a little bit on the longer side, so we're going to cruise through the early game. Nothing's changed here, just the 11 over pool, still doing a reactionary 4 lings or 2 lings depending on probe scout typically. If it's a super early probe scout, then that indicates to me I may have room to run by and punish a Nexus first. Also, if there's no probe scout, I go ahead and do 4 lings. Otherwise, if it's just an average everyday Forge Fast Expand probe scout, I'll do 2 lings. So, not too much to see here. I'll zoom up to 4 speed here for just a moment. I actually played this one earlier today, so I apologize if some of my casting's a little bit predictive. But this game was kind of one of those that I made a mental note to cast, but I know what's going to happen. Every time I do that, I forget, and it never gets cast. Alright, so at this point I'm getting over and seeing that he is in fact gateway first, and I'm on the 4 links because I hadn't seen a probe scout yet, so felt like generally I'm going to be able to do some damage. Now if we switch over to everybody view here, which I'm trying to use more and more, this is why this is really good versus gateway first. A lot of times they're going to go ahead and just crank out the chrono boost on probes and then mothership core and rely on that to hold this, but you notice the lings arrive just in time. So what ends up happening here, and this is a perfect response from, I'm sorry, my opponent is Barcode. Not much point in introducing when they're Barcode, so don't even bother. The reason this is so good from Barcode is because just a mothership, I'm going to dance these Zerglings around and just barely get the Nexus down to where he has to cancel it. That happens quite often. But instead, we've got Mothership and Zealot, or Mothership Core and Zealot, and look at that. It was at like 110 minerals, or 110 armor there. So yeah, that made all the difference in the world. I had to pull back. I maybe could have stayed and gotten the cancel. I'm not really sure. In that situation, though, I feel like actually the lings are more valuable than the cancel. If I lose all 4 lings and I get the cancel, certainly we just traded 100 minerals for 100 minerals, and I delayed his natural heavily. But the problem there is his counter aggression is much stronger because I now no longer have lings on the field. So I'm going to have to make 2 more lings. I'm going to have to wait for them to come out, or make a drone and move around with that, which is really ugly. Or take a drone off my line and move out with that for scouting, which is really ugly. And then he counter pushes, and sometimes I get caught with my pants down. So I've been trying less and less to trade 4 links for a Nexus cancel, unless it's guaranteed. But that I felt like was a situation where there was a potential for me to lose 4 links and not get the Nexus cancel, which would have been absolutely tragic. So I forced him to chrono boost where he didn't want a chrono boost. Typically, your Protoss opponent, they want to be not making that Zealot right away. They want to be making actually probably a Forge, some just tech structures in general, maybe a Cyber Core. Herp a Cyber Core. Sorry, I've been gaming all day, so my brain's fried. Anyways, apologies for bad casting, but this is one I wanted to make sure to show. Okay, so on my side of the field, we've got gateway first response, pretty standard on my part. I just go double gas. And I've tried to kind of measure his warp tech. So notice, right as his warp tech finished, and actually I just confirmed it. But, I mean, notice the timing. Actually, this is something I want to point out. And I don't know the exact timings on this, but this is something that I just do out of habit from playing a lot of games. I'm not really timing based. I try not to be because that gives me too much rigidity. But I just want to kind of illustrate, if you are timing based, what you can do to really put yourself in a good place versus most anything. So we go ahead and look at my vision. I haven't seen anything yet. And the spines drop immediately as his warp tech finishes. I mean, if I was watching this replay for my opponent, I would have said, okay, he might be map hacking. Because it was literally a direct response to the warp gate finishing. But it was more just me taking a look at the situation and realizing, okay, he's got to be low on gas. He's got to be going something Zealot heavy. So the moment I realized that, I went ahead and dropped the spines at my standard time, but I dropped 3 spines and a spore rather than 1 spine and a spore. And that's something you want to get really comfortable with versus, there we go, we're caught up. More than caught up. That's something you want to get really comfortable with versus gateway first if you're going Swarmhost, because the spine crawler timing, if it's too early, you're not going to have enough economy for the Swarmhost. If it's too late, you're just going to lose to something like that. Those 5 to 6 Zealots could have done a lot of damage, really. Alright, so I'm taking my third at a really weird time for anyone who's been watching my play for quite a while. This is just because I cleaned up a lot of those Zealots, and I felt like I had enough Zerglings on the map, especially when Metabolic finished, that I'm going to be able to maintain some map control. Then I get in here and I see I believe I did earlier. Yeah, there we go. See that Phoenix? And this actually is a cue one step further for me to go ahead and drone pretty hard. So that's pretty cool. This puts me in a great spot. But I actually thought I had kind of won the game at this point. His aggression didn't win. Didn't even do damage. Just kind of forced out a few more spines than I would normally make. And now he's going air. But thus far from what I can tell, he's on just one Stargate. Now we see back here, he's actually on 2. So that's pretty good for him. 1 Stargate play doesn't really do well versus 2 base Swarmhost at all. 2 Stargate play can do well, but you have they have trouble going into the mid game because they can't really secure their 3rd. Alright, so this was really fortunate for me. He needs to, if I can point out one big mistake he made here, when he's into Stargate tech, there's no reason to be pulling sentries and zealots down to kill that Overlord when a Phoenix can do the same job. It'll take a little while, but so are 2 sentries. So I felt like that was actually just a complete waste. But other than that, he played a really strong game this game. And that's why I wanted to make sure to cast it, because we don't see Skytoss opens played the way he's about to. And I think that needs to change in order for Skytoss to hold up versus Swarmhost. Which I know sounds bizarre, but we've all kind of realized that Swarmhost actually does hard counter Skytoss if you get it out early enough. Okay, so got my 3rd up, just kind of spamming out a few Spore Crawlers here, because I have at this point realized he's on double Stargate. If we check my vision, I did get that scouted once Overlord Speed finished up. So at this point I'm just playing a good safe game. I know my 3rd's a little faster than his, which puts me ahead of the curve for Swarmhost play. So, you know, that's just kind of one more check in my favor. I don't necessarily have to be. Now this is something I'm trying to do more and more. The moment the creep's about to recede, send in a Zergling to hassle the probe and then get the creep started again. But I had the Zergling accidentally on a move command rather than on a right click on that probe, so it didn't quite kill the probe, otherwise this would have been so cool. But instead, he gets that down, and he's able to go into a fairly late 3rd. And my Swarmhost transition started. Now, one major improvement I want to make here. I was going for something based on 1 Stargate, but when they're on 2 Stargate, I need my Evo chambers down. Because 1 Stargate, what really does well is you get 3 to 4 infestors out, so the gas that would have gone into your upgrades allows you to push quite a bit sooner with quite a bit more potency. Catching those Phoenix is pretty easy. Phoenixes, I believe. But versus double Stargate, you're going to need quite a bit larger mass of Queens, and you're also probably going to need a Hydra switch. So 2 Evo chambers should have been down ages ago. I should already be finishing up 1-1 right now, which would have potentially given me room to push, depending on how much air I saw once I suicided another Overlord. Which at this point, I wouldn't have seen enough to counter what I'm going for here. Showing this Infestors, a little bit of a whoops. I'm not too terribly worried if he sees it. In fact, since he's going air, he can almost assume it. More and more I'm starting to realize that any number of Infestors is just absolutely phenomenal versus Skytoss opens. You can make 8 Queens get so much done with those Infestors. Now, I was trying to be really cool here and time my energy timing to where just right as I arrived I had the fungals available. But fortunately, caught him not looking. I don't know why that one didn't hit. It looked like a perfect fungal. In fact, it looks like I hit right in the same spot there, but for whatever reason it did not. Keeping the Lings in run-by position just outside of his attack range because I want to know if I have the opportunity. That's really all there is. Many times I won't use that. He'll hit a Zealot Warp in and I won't get much damage done. But worst case scenario, I just run by, see a Zealot Warp in starting, and I pull back. That's not a bad deal. I force a Zealot Warp in at home, and rather than at a potential proxy pylon that he has up. So 1-1 needs to be starting. You guys are lazy. I even have a control group. I'm just being lazy right now. Anyways, getting that Overlord spread, getting ready for the push. And this is really, really critical versus Skytoss, especially when you already have Infestors on the field, and if you manage to get a Phoenix cleanup, then your window just got blown wide open to hit. So make sure to keep that in mind. If you clean up those even just 4 or 5 Phoenixes, you need to be pushing fairly quickly. Now, this is cool, and this is kind of what I wanted to point out. Notice what we've got going on here. He's Skytoss, and he's squeezed in two prisms. Now, that might not seem like a big deal, but so many Skytoss, they're just so focused on reaching critical mass on whatever capital ship they've decided for, or Void Rays, that they just don't even bother with the Robo beyond just an observer. Some are even more greedy, and they just go for Oracle for detection. But 2 Warp Prisms, and actually I don't even know, is he getting the upgrade for that? Not yet. I wonder if he does. I bet he does. 2 Prisms is just phenomenal, because versus Swarm Host play, I'm already spread pretty thin as far as to where I can allocate my units. So we'll definitely see these get some more done here. He's taking a few pot shots here. Big whoops here on his part. He's got those queued up clearly. He's just trying to multitask both defending against the Swarm Hosts and making an effective drop happen, so he had to start queuing up some commands and wasn't able to respond properly. Now my response, the moment I realized that my opponent's going to be favoring some Warp Prism harass, is I need to free up my Queen Hydra to defend back home. So that means Spores are going to be amazing for me. They're going to allow me to solidify a position, and unless he's got a really high Tempest count, which I will say right out the gate, 2 Tempest is not enough. Unless he has a really high Tempest count, he's not going to be able to do anything to those Spores. I'll just keep shuffling them back as necessary. And late game, this gives me something really cool that I can move into, which is incredibly supply efficient, which is Viper Spore Crawler. You can just keep making Spore Crawlers as needed. You can go anywhere from 8 all the way up to 15 to 20. That's not a problem. And then you want a lot of Vipers. You want 6 to 8 Vipers, because you're not going to want to be consuming those buildings. Certainly you could make some close by Evo chambers if need be, but keep in mind your queens aren't going to be at home to transfuse your, or aren't going to be there to transfuse your buildings. They're going to probably be back home defending. So generally you're just going to rely on the natural energy regen on those Vipers, so you want a lot of them. And also you're going to lose some to potentially feedback, potentially Tempest snipes. So he pulls way back, too far back obviously, so this was a big mistake on his part. He was also dropping at the same time, so I'm not quite sure what resulted in that on his part, but nevertheless, get to capitalize on that, take the 3rd for free, and I'm way ahead at this point. Now this is one thing that I didn't see. I was kind of curious what resulted in this. So it looks like this was just a fresh warp, and I thought maybe I let those run by or something, because I was busy up front. Okay, now what I'm doing here is I'm about to spam out my Vipers. So I'm actually deliberately trading away my Infestors, and I actually should have maybe made some more Infested Terran than I did. I'm just trying to get his Tempest count reset as best as possible, because that's really going to be the limiting factor on the Viper Spore play. If he's up in the 15 to 16 Tempest range, then I'm in a lot of trouble. Now, my logic was contingent, and I should pause here. My logic for doing that was contingent on being able to max out the moment my hive finished, because, as we see in production, 7 Vipers. That's 21 supply right there, and I was right up around 175, so I was going to be really close to max. A couple more queens and I'd be maxed. So, that was contingent on not having this warp in do all sorts of damage. I actually assumed he was on a pylon up there because I had already sniped the warp prism down on the bottom. So the double warp prism play forced all kinds of weird metagame decisions on my part, because I just read that and said, holy crap, he's Skytoss. That's cool that he even made 1 warp prism. He's definitely not on 2 warp prism. He's going to be dumping all that into Zealots to buffer for his Skytoss. I've actually never seen double warp prism Skytoss. And so kudos to Barcode, I wish I had a real name, but for this play, because this kept him in the game in a situation where, I mean, he was down and out. There was really nothing he was going to be able to do. Skytoss depends on that 3rd for the gas income, and it really depends on the opponent to not have a healthy spore count covering those Swarmos. So this kept him in the game in a big way, especially since I traded away those Infestors and didn't realize I was losing a bunch of supply and drones at my natural. And so would have been better off actually just pulling those back rather than suicide bungling. Okay, away we go. So this game plays out pretty interesting from here. It's already off to an interesting, not quite start, but mid-game. Definitely going to get the hatchery snipe there for my opponent, and I was trying to go ahead and go for the kill there, but with my opponent now steadily cleaning up my natural and moving on to my main shortly, I know since there's a warp prism involved, this isn't going to be something I'll clean up too easily. Now I try to multitask here, and actually let's switch over to my screen, because I think that actually helps a lot, because you're going to see times when I'm just like missing transfuse left and right. It looks terrible, and I don't want to look like a total noob, because if my screen's somewhere else, then, well, I take no responsibility for missed transfusions. So we've got all sorts of multitasking going on here. I'm scooting my Swarm Host forward. My goal here is not necessarily to say, no, you cannot take your 3rd. That's fine. You can take your 3rd. My goal is to say, if you do take your 3rd, you're going to have to keep all your units pinned in your NAT, because I want all of those Tempest consolidated in one location. So what you missed there was some missed transfusions. You get the idea. I was looking elsewhere. Zealots traded very cost effectively with queens. It was too embarrassing to show. So I told you instead. And what I'm trying to do here is, actually he did a good job of sniping my Overlord. I'm trying to get a position where, sure, he might be able to take his third, but he's not going to be able to defend it. He's going to have to spread his units out quite a bit. And I need him consolidated. The important thing with going Viper Spore, which absolutely is necessary at this point. And in fact, I should actually be making more spores. We noticed that mineral float. I should be taking bases all around the map right now and making more spores. There we go, some more inefficient cleanups while I'm busy multitasking. Is keeping him consolidated because, well, I'll point it out here in a moment. We're not quite to the point that things get fun. Let's say he's got some Tempest and some carrier here, some Tempest and carrier there. Just for sake of argument, say there's always fighting there. Cool warping and feedback, but looks like I'm going to clean that up over there. Okay, so let's say he's got some Tempest carrier there, Tempest carrier there. I move forward with my Vipers, and no matter what angle I approach from, I'm going to lose a few Vipers. But if he's consolidated, I can, generally speaking, get out before he cleans up one of my Vipers. Now, that won't always be the case, but what I'm trying to do here is just pick off one unit, clean it up. Now, he should directly engage right now. That's actually his only choice. Giving me time is all that's keeping me in the game. Well, I mean, I'm already ahead, but it's what's keeping me way ahead. So, right at that point, let's do a look at what our unit count is. I feel like, even with those spores in place, we've got 8 spores. Okay, that's pretty good. But, what does he have? He's got, before that dies, he's got 3 carriers, 2 Tempests, 2 Archons, 2 Void Rays, 2 Phoenix. So, oh, the Archons are over there, so we won't consider them. But that doesn't matter. The Archons would have been null due to the Locust. So, I mean, would he have lost a lot to these spores? Absolutely. But with those 2 Void Rays present, I think the moment he realized I was into Viper, he needed to just go, okay, I've got to break that contain. There's nothing else I can do if I don't break that contain. Because otherwise, I'm just going to pick his army off one at a time. And we see he queues up something. Well, I thought he did. Yeah, he definitely queued up something. Oh, yeah, there it is. So we see he queued up something to give it a try, and then he got scared and pulled back when he realized just how many Vipers I had, because I was going to force him to commit if he pushed any further. I was going to pull everything over and just start focus firing down everything until all my spores died. I still feel like that would have been the better course, because this might just be a slow and painful death, and I'll just spoil it. This is a slow and painful death. But this is absolutely the next stage to where I'm taking my versus Skytoss play, because more and more players are going to get wise and realize they still need some Robo in their army, so they're going to mix in some Colossus and mix in some Prisms. And the weakness I've always had is, how the hell do I keep 8 to 10 Zealots from killing everything I have, especially once charge is researched, because then I can't split off a small portion of my Queen Hydra pack. I need the entire group. And these spores are the answer, because they're going to give me more permanent detection. They're going to give me the ability to, as you saw, pick his army apart one at a time. And spores actually kill carriers phenomenally fast, and carriers are the highest hit point unit there. So, actually, carriers. Do Phoenix have more? Same. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, 8 spores, 2-shotting basically a carrier, 2-shotting a Phoenix. And if the Void Rays come in, then I prioritize them and probably one-shot them with 8 spores if I'm focusing properly. Now, one other thing that's really important here, if we switch to my... Oh, wow, it doesn't show anymore. Okay. This is... I've been mentioning a lot how I'm trying to get in the habit of using my spacebar control group. Where are you at? Too far. I actually didn't do it this time. Okay, strike that. So, actually, this is a big mistake. That I thought I fixed that. I must have accidentally switched it back. Okay, strike that. So that's actually something I need to improve. I must have been control-clicking these. I don't even think about what I'm doing when I play anymore with the micro side of it. I just do it. So I must have been control-clicking these for the focus fire, because you got to make sure you're not hitting interceptors in that scenario. But optimally, what I should have done, and what I've been typically doing when I practice, is my 0 control key, which is on spacebar, is on Evo Chambers. And if we look at Evo Chambers... Well, had my Evos not been so late, we saw that before too. Strike that, I played horrible this game, don't reproduce what I did. Typically by this stage of the game I'm on 3-3. I was not, but that means I can replace my spacebar control key, which is previously on Evo Chambers, for something like this, so that it's just a quick, okay, abduct, press spacebar, right-click on the carrier. Abduct, press spacebar, right-click on the carrier. You just wash, rinse, repeat with that so that you're now focus firing on your spores, which by and large people don't really utilize properly. Spores and spines, if they're focused, make all the difference in the world. And we focus our spines on banelings once in a while at a pro level, or at a high masters or grandmasters level, but otherwise we just don't really do it too often. So I'm trying to do that more and more, so this is a big reminder to me. I actually thought I did it that game, but I guess my control clicking was just really on the spot. So yeah, there you go. Hopefully something a little new for some people. Abduct and spore crawlers are pretty good to free up your army to go back home and defend. Again, big kudos to Barcode to evolving his Skytoss play, because so many Protoss have been completely unwilling to do this. And once we see more and more of that, I think it's going to be much more difficult. Now, no upgrades, no kudos for our Barcode on that one. But that's another story. Okay, thanks a bunch for watching, guys.